Okay, so the first section is all about factoring and canceling. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by factoring the top. This one right here is a simple ABC. So two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to -1. We're going to have 3 and 2. To get the -1, it'll have to be negative and a positive. Then the second one is also a simple ABC. So two numbers that multiply to 8 and combine to 6 are 2 and 4. Both going to be positive. Now from here we can actually get our restrictions. So we have x equals -2 and x equals -4. And then we go back and now we can actually do our canceling. So our final answer is x minus 3 on top and x plus 4 on the bottom. Now, if you don't want to put the parentheses, you don't have to. It's the same thing, but I'll just add the parentheses back in. Okay, the next one, it looks like it's also a simple ABC on the bottom. So I'm going to start with the bottom. Two numbers that multiply to 16 and give me 8 are 4 and 4. The entire problem is positive, so I use two positives here. That gives me my restrictions. X equals -4. Now, it's the same restriction for both of them, and I don't have to write it twice. So the top is a difference of squares. So in a difference of squares, we basically square root each part. So we get x plus 4 and then x minus 4. And then we cross out. So we've got a pair of x plus 4s. Now these do not cross out because the signs are different. So our final answer is just x minus 4 on top and x plus 4 on the bottom. And again, if you forget to put the parentheses at the end, not a big deal. Okay, then we get into multiplying. Multiplying is done the same exact way, it's just got more parts. So the first one is a difference of squares. So we're going to have two fractions here. First one is a difference of squares, so we have x plus 1, x minus 1. The second one is a GCF, so we can pull out a 12x. Here we have x plus 2. The other one has a GCF, it's x, so x plus 1. And then we have also the 4. So I'm just going to rearrange this problem. I want all of my stuff that's not in parentheses in the front. So I have 4 over 12x. And then I want all the parentheses after. So x plus 1, x minus 1, and then we have x plus 2 and x plus 1. So there are three restrictions now. We have x equals 0, x equals -2, and then x equals -1. To cross out, we can start with the parentheses. So I have a x plus 1 here and over here. And then the 4 over 12 is actually going to reduce to 1/3. So there's also an x at the bottom. And then we have a parentheses of x minus 1 on top, and then x plus 2 at the bottom. So those are our answers. So x minus 1 on top, 3x, x plus 2 at the bottom. Notice I didn't put the 1. You can put the 1 back, but 1 times anything is the other stuff, so I just don't usually put it. Okay. Now the second half of this is going to have kind of more of the same. So now it's a division problem. When you have division, there is no such thing as division. So when you have a division problem, you're actually going to multiply. You just have to remember to flip the second one. Actually, I want to move this back. I want the pen, and I want to make two fractions here. So we've got two fractions, multiply, fraction. We got to switch the second one. It's always the second one that flips. So 4x goes on top, x minus 1 goes at the bottom, and it's in parentheses. So then we have 2x squared at the bottom. And the top one of the first is simple ABC. So we have x and x, and then we have 5 and 1. And then to make a positive 4, it would have to be plus 5 minus 1. Now I'm going to rewrite this as one fraction, so 2x squared, x minus 1. And then we're going to have the 4x, and then the x plus 5 and x minus 1. Now before I cross anything out, I have to list my restrictions. So the part that doesn't have parentheses is going to give me an automatic 0, and the other one is x equals 1. Then I can cross out. So I start off with my parentheses, these cross out. And this part right here, it just reduces. So 4 over 2 is 2, and then you have x and x squared on the bottom, so that leaves you with x, and then you just have x plus 5 left on top. So that's our final answer. Plus 5 over x. Next problem is nearly identical. So we start off with our two fractions and we flip the second one. So I'm going to also kind of factor at the same time. So the top one ends up on the bottom, and it's got a GCF, so it's 2x minus 3. The second one has a GCF, and it's x. So we have x and x squared plus x minus 6. And then this one right here, it's got a GCF, so we got 2x and then x minus 2. Yep. And then the next one, this one is a complex ABC, so we have to find two numbers that multiply to 12. So we got the 2x squared and the minus 6. Two numbers that multiply to 12 and give me the positive x. So I have, let's see, I think that's going to end up being negative 3x and plus 4x. So then I can do my simple complex grouping stuff. So we have x, 2x minus 3, and then we have 2x minus 3. So that means we're going to end up with a 2x minus 3 on top, and then we're going to have an x plus 2. So this big fraction turns into x. I'm going to take all my stuff not in parentheses. So I have the 2x and the 2, so that's actually 4x now. I'm going to have my 2x minus 3, x plus 2. Then this guy right here, this is another simple ABC. So this is x 3 and 2 again. So it's going to be plus 3 minus 2. So I have another x plus 3, x minus 2. And then I have my x minus 2 and my 2x minus 3. So for my restrictions, I have 0, I have positive 2, and I also have 3 over 2. I can get that by setting the bottom equal to 0. Then I go through and I cross out. So I have this and this, I have this and this, and then my x's can also cross out. So I'm left with x plus 2 on top, x plus 3 on top, and on the bottom I'm just left with, looks like 4. Next one is a multiplication problem. So multiplication, we don't have to flip. So the first one is a cubes problem. So we have x minus 4, then x squared plus 4x plus 16. Then we have the simple ABC, x minus 4, actually that's a plus 4, and then x plus 4 again. And then we have the 2x on top, and then we have x plus 4 and x minus 4. So I'm going to make this all one, so I bring the stuff without parentheses to the front. And remember, in a difference of cubes or the cubes problems, the second set never factors. So we have x plus 4, x minus 4, x plus 4, x minus 4 again. Actually, I looked at that wrong. That's another x plus 4. Okay, so our restrictions are negative 4, and positive 4. And then we can cross out. So we have, what do we have? 2x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay, got this and this. And it looks like that's it, actually. So my answer is 2x, x squared plus 4x plus 16, all over x plus 4 and x plus 4 again. Actually, you've got 3x plus 4s. Wow. X plus 4. Really went crazy with the x plus 4s. Okay. Next, explain the error. So we checked their factoring. It looks like they did their cubes right. They took out their GCF correct. Now, it appears like from this step to this step, something happened. Something weird happened. So what the heck happened? Well, I noticed that there's a 3x, and I noticed that there's a 3x here. So where the heck did everything else go? It looks like they actually crossed out those, and we know that we can't cross stuff out that's in parentheses. It's either the whole parentheses or nothing. So the error, they crossed out the x squared and 9 from inside parentheses. And we know you can't do that. It's all or nothing. So the mistake is at this step right here. Okay, next we have some real life problem, and it seems confusing, but it actually isn't. This is my cost. Whoa. See if my board is going to act weird. This is my cost. This is the number of cupcakes. So if I want to find my total cost, my total cost is going to basically be how much it costs to produce a cupcake multiplied by the number of cupcakes I'm going to make. So that means that I just take these two fractions, t plus 0.75 all over 1 minus 0.04 t, and I multiply it by 1500 t plus 20 all over t plus 0.75. So our goal here, remember when we multiply, we actually don't multiply. All we do is cancel. It's already factored for us. I think I forgot the zeros here. So we just factor out this and this, so that's our answer. 1500 t plus 20 all over 1 minus 0.04 t, and that's it. So it says, now use that model. So we would need to use this answer down here to figure out how much they made or how much they spent in 2014. So right here, in this line right here, they say 2010, oops, clear all this out. They say that 2010, I can't write 2010, I don't know why. 2010 is t equals 0. So that means that 2011 must mean t equals 1. And they want us to go all the way to 2014. So that means that t equals 4. So we would have to use the answer that we had right here and just plug in t equals 4. And I'm not going to do that in this review because you have a calculator, you can do that yourself. And I didn't mean to sound like I have attitude, it's just that I'm not going to waste my time plugging into a calculator when you can do it. Let's see what we got here. This is the problem I just did. So here's another one. We have to add. So in order to add, we have to break down the bottoms. So for number 9, we go like this. My bottom is 3 and x. I'm going to have 5, x, and x. So that means my LCD is 3, x, 5, x, which ends up being 15x squared. So if I'm going to make this fraction into something with this new LCD, which by the way, since I know that's my LCD, that means my restriction is 0. So I've got my new LCD here, and now I just need to multiply the tops by what's missing. So the first one, it's missing this and this. So that means I have to multiply the top by 5x. So this is 10x. And it's missing, the bottom one is missing just the 3. So that means I have to multiply this by 3. So that's 21. So then we write them all over the same bottom, 15x squared. And then I have 10x plus 21. That's my answer. Okay, we have to factor first so that we can do our column work. So we do our columns right here. I just make them a little wider because I know I'm going to have parentheses. So it's going to be minus 2 and minus 3. So I have x minus 2, x minus 3, and then x minus 2. So my LCD is going to be x minus 2 and x minus 3. So that means that my restrictions are x equals 2 and x equals 3. And then I do my multiplication. So the first fraction has everything. So I just multiply that by 1. And then my second fraction is missing the x minus 3. So that means that we're going to have these two fractions with this LCD, LCD, LCD. This is an addition problem. So on the top of this one, we have 3x minus, 9? And then this one is negative 4x. So we just combine like terms. So we end up with negative x minus 9 all over x minus 2, x minus 3. That's our answer. Problem 13, describe the steps. So step 1, on line 1, it looks like they factored the bottom, factored denominator. Then it looks like he found the LCD and multiplied by x plus 6. And then he combined the tops. That's it. Those are 3 steps. Let's see what else we got. We may or may not have some more stuff up here at the top. I don't remember. Back up and scoot this over. Oh, I just drew a line. I want arrow, scoot this over. There we go. Okay, so same thing. It's just a subtraction problem. So we've got to do our work first. I have x minus 1. This factors, let's see, that's a 2x squared minus 1. So that means it's going to have a 2. It's going to have an x minus 1. And it's going to also have an x plus 1. So that means my LCD is 2, x minus 1, x plus 1. So when I multiply the parts that are missing, the first one is missing the 2 and the x plus 1, and the second one isn't missing anything. So we're going to have this LCD with a minus sign, LCD, LCD. The first one is missing, it's got the 3, it's missing the 2, and it's missing the x plus 1. So that right there ends up being 3 times 2 is 6, and then we have x plus 1. And then the second one isn't missing anything, so it's just got the 5. So remember that the negative goes with that 5 right there. So on top I have 6x plus 6 minus 5 all over the LCD. 6x plus 6 minus 5 gives us 6x plus 1. And then my LCD is 2, x minus 1, x plus 1. So my restrictions are x equals 1 and x equals negative 1. So a lot of kids think that this has a restriction, but it doesn't because I don't have an x, so I don't care about it. So my answer is 6x plus 1, 2, x minus 1, x plus 1. And the next problem is done almost exactly the same. Clear this off so we can see. So we factor the bottoms, we do our LCD work. So that's a difference of squares, so that's x plus 4 and x minus 4. Then we have a GCF of 2, so that's x minus 4. So 2, x minus 4. So my LCD is 2, x plus 4, x minus 4. So that means my restrictions are minus 4 and plus 4. You don't have to put the plus. So we have to multiply by what's missing. The first one is missing a 2. Oops. The second one is missing the x plus 4. So I have to times the first one by 2 and this one by x plus 4. So remember that this negative, it actually goes with that 3. So we're going to have 4. This is all over our LCD. We're going to have 4, and then we're going to have negative 3x minus 12. So when we combine our terms, we're going to have negative 3x minus 8 all over 2, x plus 4, and x minus 4. That's our answer. Okay, next question. These are proportions, so we just have to cross multiply. So we have 4 times x minus 4. Oops, actually I'm going to start that over. I don't like how I wrote it. So 4 x minus 4, this goes with that. And then 3 goes with the x plus 7. So when we cross multiply, we have 4x minus 16 equals 3x plus 21. So I subtract 3x. And I add the 16. So I get x equals, see that crosses out, that crosses out. I end up with x equals 37. Now my restrictions here are 4 and negative 7, and that's not matching the restriction, so that is the answer. This is another problem where we just have to cross multiply. 3x times x minus 1 equals 2 times x squared minus 4x plus 3. So I have 3x squared minus 3x equals 2x squared minus 8x plus 6. So I need to get all of my x's to one side. So I'm going to subtract. Let's see, I'll subtract 2x squared. So I'll also add 8x. And then I'll subtract 6. So I'll have x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. And then we can factor this and solve. So I have x, what is that? Minus, actually plus 6, x minus 1. So x equals negative 6 and x equals 1. Now these are possible answers, but I got to check to see if maybe they'll cause a problem. So if I plug in -6 down here, we're good. If I plug in, let's see, I think this ends up being x, what is that, -3 and -1. So if I plug in the -6, we're good. But if I plug in 1, we have a problem. So that causes the bottom to be 0. So that's an extraneous solution. Okay, this problem is harder than it looks. It says combine the expressions on the right. So they want us to basically make that into one fraction. So guys, when you have a 1 here, it's easy because in order to turn it into a 20, you just got to multiply it by 20. So that means d equals, what is that, 20s over 20 plus s squared over 20. And since you have the two 20s at the bottom, you don't need two 20s anymore. So you can just put them over 120. And then it says, number 19, find the speed that results in a braking distance of 240 feet. So what you could do here is you could plug in 240 equals 20s plus s squared all over 20. You could put this over 1 and cross multiply, so you'll have, I'm going to rearrange that to s squared plus 20s equals 480. And then I'll subtract the 480 over. Now guys, I've been telling you stuff all semester, and I think it's time we just put it all together. You can actually graph this, and it's going to be a parabola. So you're going to have a parabola that goes like this. So in the graphing calculator, your solutions are going to be the x-intercepts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I know I said earlier I wasn't going to do calculator stuff with you, but I'm going to have to so I can come up with my answers. So there's no s in the calculator, so I have to use x plus 20x minus 480. Now you can't really see what's happening here, but on my calculator I can't see anything because the window is 10 by 10 and I have a number that's 480. So I need to make sure that I open up my window to some pretty large numbers just to make sure I see everything. So I find the roots. There's one root for s. See, I think that's right, 480. Actually, this is 4800, not 480. 4800. I gotta adjust my problem now. Adjust my graph. 4800. So now I gotta change my window again. -200 to 200. Viewing window. I want my minimum to be -5,000. Yeah, that sounds good. So I should be able to see my parabola, and now I g-solve it. So one of them is at -80, and the other one is at 60. So this problem right here says, when the braking distance is 315, the solutions are 70 and -90. One of these is extraneous. So I would say the extraneous answer, the extraneous answer is -90 miles per hour. The reason, you can't go I'll put the word negative speeds. There's no such thing in real life as a negative speed. And so hopefully this review helps you, because that's all I got. So our test is coming up. Make sure you understand all the problems. Make sure you ask questions.